In April 2019, I decided to visit Nottingham, mainly to get some photographs of kingfishers. I was unsuccessful in this. I took the train from York to Nottingham, and then it's a short tram ride to Goldsmith Street Premier Inn, near the corner of the General Cemetery. My hotel room was not ready, so I decided to wander around and take some photographs in the meantime. This is Nottingham Trent University's Student Union. No idea who the architect is, but it was opened by Sebastian Coe in 2014. This is Nottingham Guildhall. Work started on this building in 1887 and originally contained a magistrate's court, a police station and a fire station. Up until 2010 it was used as council offices, but since then has remained unoccupied. This is Nottingham Council House at the Old Market Square. It was built between 1927 and 1929 and designed by Thomas Cecil Howitt. The dome contains a bell known as Little John, which once had the lowest tone of any bell in the United Kingdom. It weighs over 10 tons and can be heard from a distance of 7 miles. This building started life as the Prudential Assurance Building. It was designed by Alfred Waterhouse and construction started in 1895. In recent years, it has housed the Hard Rock Cafe, a Brazilian restaurant named Tropiero, and is currently the Alchemist Bar Restaurant. This is the Theatre Royal. Much of the music available will be familiar to you if you were a teenager in the 1980s. Currently there are stars such as Mark Armand, UB40, the B-52s and even some Meat Loaf appearing. Building of the theatre completed in 1865 after only 6 months of work. It cost John and William Lambert, lace manufacturers, £15,000. These buildings are on Derby Road. They were built in 1898 and designed by G.S. Doughty and John Howitt of Nottingham. This is Canning Terrace on the edge of Canning Circus. These were built in the mid-19th century and are almshouses. The arch in the centre leads into Nottingham General Cemetery. On the other side of the General Cemetery is the Waverley Building, part of the Nottingham Trent University. It was formerly known as the College of Art and Design. It was built between 1863 and 1865 and was designed by Frederick Bakewell of Nottingham. Next door to the Waverley Building is the Arboretum, which is definitely worth a visit. The Nottingham Enclosure Act of 1845 aimed to provide green spaces around Nottingham. Samuel Curtis was responsible for building the Arboretum, the first public park opened in Nottingham. This is the Victoria Centre Clock Tower, a survival from the Victoria Railway Station, which was closed in 1967 and then demolished. This is the Newton Building, sometimes known as the Nottingham Conference Centre. The building was designed by Thomas Cecil Howitt and built between 1956 and 58. It has a green roof and a pair of breeding peregrine falcons live on the top of the Newton Building during the spring and summer months. I made a fairly early start and got the tram down to Nottingham Railway Station. There I caught a train 2 stops down the track to Attenborough. Attenborough Nature Reserve is a short walk from Attenborough Railway Station. The reserve used to be a series of gravel pits that were mined from 1929 till 1967, and they are still owned by the Cemex Gravel Extraction Company. it continues to extract gravel at neighbouring sites. This duck really shouldn't be here. It normally lives around the Mediterranean and doesn't get anywhere near the UK, but there were a pair of them paddling around the visitor centre. The red-crested pochard isn't really a UK bird either. Most of the birds in this country are descended from birds that have escaped, although there may just possibly be a few visitors from the continent. At Attenborough, near the visitor centre, there is a sunken hide which is set between two artificial nesting banks in which sand martins nest. They are amongst the earliest migrants to return to this country, flying over 3,000 miles from Africa. This is an Egyptian goose. This is yet another bird that was introduced to ornamental ponds and has now escaped to live in the wild. According to the RSPB, this is towards the northern edge of its range. This is a wren, one of Britain's smallest birds. It may be small, but my can it sing. I picked this up without the use of an external microphone as well. I think this is a bank vole. I don't think it's any kind of a mouse. Its eyes seem too small for that, and it's not nocturnal like the wood mouse, but its tail does seem surprisingly long. A European robin, quite clearly an orange breast, not a red breast at all. A great crested grebe, and a fish. Tufted duck were much in evidence. You can find them in lowland areas all over England and Scotland, and to a lesser extent Wales and Ireland. This grey heron was standing motionless by a weir. It didn't seem particularly concerned about the passers-by crossing the bridge. This is the grey-lag goose, the ancestor of all domestic geese, although it is now somewhat lighter than the domestic variety. At this point I did see a kingfisher on 2 occasions. However, it was no more than a blue streak, and I entirely failed to get so much as a photograph. The next day I went back to Attenborough in search of those elusive kingfishers. I arrived fairly early and was met by this extremely tame robin. This was shot at a 100mm focal length. There were also a number of great crested grebes about. There were also a number of Canada geese. Incidentally, these were also a non-native species, introduced from America. Then I spotted another robin with breakfast. Then I settled down in a hide to wait for the kingfishers. This hide has a key code which you need to enter it, which you can get from the visitor centre. In the meantime, I watched this coot, who could be very aggressive to other birds, paddling about. I may have mentioned before, bald as a coot actually means white-headed, as this was the original meaning of bald. Still no kingfishers, so I watched these grey-lag geese for a bit. Not even the coot was stupid enough to take them on. A distant heron in a tree, still no kingfishers, although a visitor to the hide did see one within a few seconds of entering the hide. I, of course, was looking the other way. Next, a pair of reed buntings. No more kingfishers. Eventually I decided to give up on the kingfishers and head back to the visitor centre for some lunch. Then I decided to explore the area of the reserve to the west of the visitor centre, following alongside the railway tracks. Nothing much to report until I turned left towards the River Trent, when I started to see quite a few butterflies. And a few birds, like this male blackcap. And that was about it. Just time to catch the train back to Nottingham. Did you see the 2012 Batman film The Dark Knight Rises? If so, you might recognise this. Well, in fact, Wayne Manor is Wallerton Hall, which lies just outside Nottingham. Hello, this is Wallerton Hall, set in the suburbs of Nottingham. It's an Elizabethan mansion set in 500 acres of deer park, although today I haven't actually seen any deer yet. I believe there are some. It's quite a misty day. Today is Thursday the 18th of April 2019, but we are promised some better weather later on. In fact, quite warm for this time of year. Well, we'll see how it goes, see if I can find some deer. Well, Bye. The house wasn't open yet, so I went for a wander around the lake instead. Wollerton Hall is also a natural history museum, so there aren't many original items of furniture still in the building. However, there is a fake hammer beam roof, fake in the sense that it doesn't actually carry any load. Here's a handy tip for bird watchers and aspiring wildlife photographers. It's a lot easier when your quarry is stuffed. Inexplicably, some people consider this cheating. You see, I told you bald meant white-headed. Then I went to have a look at the Camellia House. Built in 1828, it is the oldest cast iron greenhouse in Europe. It originally had underfloor heating because they thought the camellias were delicate. However, since they originate from the Himalayas, it was found the central heating was not needed and it was later removed. Then I went in search of the elusive deer, which I eventually found some distance away from the house. There are two species of deer at Wollerton Hall. These are red deer, so named because of the red tinge to their coat. They appear to be molting at this time. In fact, the local jackdaws seem to be helping the deer in their molt. The deer don't seem to mind, and I suppose the jackdaws get material to line their nests with. Although this isn't a sight I expected to see outside of the African savannah. These are fallow deer, smaller and lighter in colour than red deer, with distinctive markings on their rump and a spotty coat. Nearer the car park were a group of large red deer stags who seemed to be suffering a bit in the heat. The faster those jackdaws peck off their fur, the better. You are supposed to stay 50 metres away from the deer, but I'm sure plenty of people were getting much closer than that. They don't seem to mind. Maybe it's a safety thing. Then I decided to explore some of the foresty bits around the edge of the park, where I spotted this speckled wood. And then I saw a jay, and then another, and another, and another. In fact, I've never seen so many jays at one time. Usually they're at the top of a tree and you can hear them, but not see them. Eventually, I found my way back to the lake, where I saw this male mandarin duck. This is another non-native introduction from the east. After this, I caught the bus back to Nottingham. That's about it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Bye for now.